Hi, welcome to Dewdrops. That was quite an intro, wasn't it? I'm experimenting, what can I say? Well, we are starting out strong here. It's going to be quite a video. We are not only doing something very similar to the last video I did, but we are adding something on top of that, which I think you will really enjoy. Right now we are preparing our wire as we normally do in that zigzag pattern. I'm using a very thin round nose because I want my pattern very tight for this piece. And I straighten it out and I bend the end according to what I want and cut it down to make sure it's smooth and straight. And then I start sizing up once I get my mold back over here. This is, again, probably the longest part of putting this piece together is by putting these wires in. Because I just did a video on this, I didn't spend as much time on it, but I did spend enough to where somebody that doesn't understand how to do it will have a real good idea. Right now, I am just securing the corners. I know that I want a piece of wire in each one of those corners, and I'm going to measure it and cut it. And now you will notice most of the time when you see me cut these pieces, if there's a significant amount that needs to be cut off, I will cut on both sides to keep the integrity of the pattern of the wire. Not the pattern that goes into the piece, but the actual wire itself. We are going to be spacing each wire out. As you can see here, I am testing the area of where I want it, getting a good idea, cutting the wire, and then putting it in different spots, thinking, okay, maybe it'll fit here well. When I check for the length of the wire, I don't always get it exact, but that's okay. It's trial and error throughout the entire process of doing this. And as you watch me do each piece, I will eventually get to the point where I'm going to cut a bunch of pieces that are approximate size and then go back and readjust them. After I do put in each piece, I do cure it in. Sometimes I do 2 pieces at a time, but right now, majority of the time, I'm just doing 1 because the pieces are very small and they don't have a lot of bend to them, so they don't stand up real good. Some of them. Others that have a lot of bend, it's not a problem. I am going to let you watch the rest of this process. I will interject if there's a place that I need to interject on. It's just cutting them according to size and then putting them into the piece. Well, now that we're done with the framework, we are going to move on to putting resin in, and you will notice that I will be using a heat gun. It is the best way to get rid of the bubbles in something like this because you can't really get in there as easily. I use my paintbrush, but it just doesn't seem to get them all out. This seems to really help. And then you cure it, and then we are going to add some Chameleon powders to it, the Dewdrops Resin. I'm using teal, champagne, the magenta, and possibly olive. I don't actually think I used it this time, but I had it out just in case. I am putting some resin on my silicone pad. so I can mix some colors on it. I actually make kind of like a little paint. It works really, really well. I put resin on the piece itself, a good thick coating of it, not deep, but just a thick coating of it so it moves well. And then I take some of my Chameleon powder, and this time it's magenta, and I mix it with the resin and I paint it on. It's amazing how beautiful it turns out. Look at the color that, when I mix it in with the resin like that, because it's so thick. The colors are just amazing, but they're so sheer at the same time. I just kind of dot it, put it, however you want to do it. It doesn't really matter, I think, how you do it. It's just getting the color down in the strength or amounts that you prefer. I am a pink girl, and I also just love this teal. And so I like to combine them with a lot of different things. I really just enjoy these colors. And then when I add the champagne on top of this, it just kind of makes it this rich color. This will not be as shiny like the other one has that glistening shine. These are Chameleon powders. They're not the Flakes. So it is a little of a different look, but I love this look. It's not so overpowering, and you'll see the difference, and it's just preference, I think. So right here we're adding the champagne. I did decide to not add the olive. It would have been just too much. So I just added a few more layers of the magenta and the teal, and then I cured it and went from there. It was amazing how beautiful it turned out. You saw me clapping my hands. I'm putting another layer of resin on it, and I'm going to dry this layer pretty sticky so that I can add the backing on. Right now, while it's curing, I am making the bail for it. And all I do is take that flat wire and I roll it. And I roll it to the size that I want it, of course. And I do it 1.5 to 2 full turns. And then I take my needle nose, straighten it, and then put it in there and crick it back, just like you do when you're making that zigzag. It's a very, very simple bail, and they look really good. And your chain fits through where your jump ring is. A lot of times the jump ring won't fit through. I make it big enough personally so that jump ring will fit through, because I'm always changing my necklaces. So now we're going to put the back on. I left it sticky so that the black mica powder will stick real well. And I think on my last one, I don't think I used the mica powder. I think I used some black nail polish, UV polish. And that works wonderfully too. But I prefer the mica powder because it just is much simpler to use. It's no mixing. It's just putting it on and then putting resin over it like I'm doing here. And it stays in place. It does beautifully. It's still translucent enough to be able to cure through. And once that is cured, we're going to cure the bottom part before we take this out and move on to our next step, which I'm really excited about. We're going to clean up the edges first with a deburring tool. These tools are wonderful. There's a learning curve with them, like just about anything. But our next step is we're taking resin tape, and we're going to take, probably 5 inches, 6 inches of tape, and now we're going to fold each end. Those are your little handles. Your fingers won't stick to those areas, and it makes all the difference in controlling your piece while you're working on it. Stick it right smack in the middle and put some good pressure on it to make sure it's stuck real good. And now you have a back there to work with to put your resin, and it won't just go everywhere. Put your resin in, get rid of all the bubbles, and we're going to cure that. And then once that is cured, we will be putting another layer on. It'll be maybe that piece is probably maybe 3 millimeters in depth. So you're probably going maybe halfway up by this layer. You still want plenty of room to be able to put your color in deep, because it gives it texture, it gives it depth. Now, once that was cured, now I'm adding some gilding adhesive. This is the Speedball, and it's very watery. Now we're going to use the Let's Resin chrome powder. This is the blue. I love this color. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I put it on pretty thick because I really want this color deep. You can see how much I put in there. I'm going to burnish it in some, but not a ton. Forgive me, my son-in-law is upstairs cooking. Anyway, I am going to fill this up with resin, and then we are going to cure it, and then we're going to be adding another embellishment. I love that color. It is so pretty. It is so pretty. It just gives so much life because of how deep that color is. It's so rich. I'm going to add some more resin, and I'm going to add a decent amount actually, because I want it to be kind of like a little pool. And you're going to see as I add in these flat back pearls, the smaller pearls will give it a farther depth, especially if you put it in the deepest part of what you're doing. And you're going to see as I'm doing it here. I'm going to let you listen to the music as we do this part of the process, and when we get to the flowers, I will be back. Well, now that we're done putting in the pearl embellishments, we are going to be putting in the flowers. We're going to be using Queen Anne lace. They are little tiny flowers that they can come in just about any color imaginable. And I love them. I use them all the time. They're so easy to use, and they really are pretty. I'm using the cream colored or white. I don't think you can really get them any lighter than that. I guess it really just depends on where you get them from. I haven't found them in the white yet. If you do, let me know. I take my little scissors, they're just little cuticle scissors, and I just cut these apart. I cut them in little tiny sections, or I cut them in singular little flowers. It just really depends on what the need is. For this one, we need sections and individual flowers, and you'll see me using both. I put resin on the piece itself already to make it easier to put the flowers on there because they will adhere to the piece that way. And I just use a little resin on my brush to pick them up. And I just place the flowers where I think they look the best. Some cover those little pearls, some don't. It just really depends. Those were there as aesthetic so that as they peeked through, you could see them. They're not the focal. The flowers are more the focal. So we continue putting the flowers on. We don't want to overdo it. It's really easy to do that. I have a terrible tendency of overdoing flowers. I just keep putting them on because I just love them. I just think they're so pretty on these pieces. It's amazing what the flowers give to the piece or any embellishment. I just love how it just comes alive as you add things. Now that we cured the flowers in, we're going to add more resin and we're going to add some caviar beads. And I'm doing the ones that are about 1 millimeter, maybe a little bit less. And they're going to go in the flowers themselves. I want them to look like the middle of the flower. It just kind of gives it more depth within your piece as you add your resin, because this will be a smooth piece. This is not a textured piece. This will be a smooth piece. So you just keep adding your little beads until you think there's enough. Again, try not to overdo. Less usually is more when it comes to these things. Now that we've got those caviar beads on, we're going to cure them in, and we're going to put a good thick layer of resin on this. And look at this thing come to life. Remember, I told you it's not going to be shiny, but it will glisten. Those chameleon flakes are going to pick up all kinds of colors. They're just really amazing. So we're going to cure it. And now we're going to take it off the tape and you get to see what the back looks like. Just very simple, but it's nice. It's a very nice back. It's not messy like a lot of backs are, or you have to do a lot of fixing. Anyway, we're going to put on the bail that we made. And again, I do it a little differently than a lot. I put my resin on the bail. I put my piece on top of the bail. Add a little bit more resin at the crook of the neck, right next to where the piece is at. And then I cure it into place. And it holds it there until I can cure the back properly. I always do a cure through the mold, but there is no substitute for putting more resin on and actually curing the back. I'm sure, as you know. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm curing the back through the mold, and now it's attached. And now I'm just going to cover the back with resin. I'm first going to do where the bail's at so it secures it in real good. And once this thing is in, you would have to pull it with a pair of pliers to get it off. It is not going anywhere. And I'm going to put resin on the back, the rest of the back, cure that whole thing, and then get ready to put some clear coat on the front. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry that it's so low. I thought it was in the right spot, but as you're gonna see here, it just is so beautiful. Wait till you see how the colors just shine through. I just love this look. It doesn't always have to be flashy. It's just simple and elegant. Thank you so much for joining me in this beautiful piece. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were inspired. Please like and subscribe. See you soon.